Over the years, I've tried many chocolate chip cookie recipes. I've experimented with a lot of them, and I've tweaked them, and I've diddled with them a little, and I have come up with, I think, a very good recipe for a brown butter chocolate chip cookie bar that I want to share with you today.
10 years ago, I stumbled across a Cook's Illustrated recipe for the best chocolate chip cookies. It was a modification of the old Toll House recipe, and it made use of brown butter to give the cookies a rich toffee flavor. One thing I had always loved from my youth is a Toll House bar cookie. It's basically lots of cookie batter pressed into a brownie shape. So after some tweaks, I came up with a great hybrid recipe that uses ratios ingredients from the Cook's Illustrated version and the quantities from the Toll House bar recipe. So we're going to start by getting our mise en place ready. Things happen pretty quickly in this recipe, so I like to get it all measured out before I start. The recipe I have is for a sheet pan size, but you can have it for an 11 by 13 pan. I set up the ingredients in a couple of groups. For the dry ingredients, I use AP flour, 25 ounces or 700 grams, and I put 2 teaspoons of baking soda in it. Now I don't sift it, I just whisk it a bit to make sure it has no clumps. For the wet ingredients, I start with my sugars. I put them in a stand mixing bowl. Now you can whisk this by hand, but I find a stand mixer is just making it a little easier. I put in 11 ounces of brown sugar, which is 308 grams, and 13 ounces of white sugar, 364 grams. I also add a tablespoon of kosher salt right into the sugars. So I cut my butter, which is a pound or 450 grams, into small chunks so it splatters less when it melts. So I save about a quarter of a stick worth or about 50 grams worth, and I put that right into the sugar unmelted. The recipe needs this butter to be unbrowned because it needs the water content in it. I set 4 teaspoons of vanilla extract and 4 eggs on the side. I also crushed the pecans. You can add 1 to 1.5 cups, and they're optional, so you don't have to add them at all. I crush mine coarsely and add about 1.5 cups or 375 milliliters. So once my mise en place is ready, I preheat the oven to 350 convection. That's 375 in a still oven. And I get a baking pan pre-greased. I put parchment paper under mine to make the removal a little easier. The hardest part of this recipe is to brown the butter. So, why are we browning the butter? Let's talk method. Most chocolate chip recipes have you cream the butter in sugar. Sugar drags itself to the butter, it aerates it, and it leaves these little pockets that can catch gases from the chemical leavener you use in your recipe. Baking soda in this case. This is going to make the final product light and airy. Well, it's a cookie bar, so we're trading the airy creamed butter for flavored brown butter. This is going to make the final product more dense, but also a little more chewy. Brown butter also has this amazing flavor. It has like a rich toffee flavor, which is what we're looking for. Accenting that toffee flavor is the salt content of this recipe. This recipe has a lot more salt than your typical cookie recipe, which really enhances, like I said, the toffee flavor and the bitter of the chocolate and the sweet notes of the sugar. So let's get started. Step 1, brown the butter. I put the butter in a pan on medium-high heat and give it some stirs along the way if it starts splattering. Do not walk away from this. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes thereabouts, and it goes from brown to burnt in about 30 seconds. So just be diligent. When you see the milk solids in the butter turn in a deep red, take it off the heat and pour it right into your sugars. This is going to stop the cooking process. I run the mixer with the whisk attachment for a minute or so to mix it up, and then I let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes. You don't want to start adding your eggs to the hot sugar because they can cook. You can temp it out or just touch it and see if it's ready. I normally wait till it's about 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 49 Celsius. If it's warm to the touch, it's fine. Step 2, whip the sugar in the butter. So add your vanilla to the sugar and then get the mixer going at medium speed or just start whisking it. You're going to add 1 egg at a time, waiting for it to incorporate before you're adding the next egg. Once you add all the eggs, scrape the bowl, and then whip the egg and sugar mixture for 30 seconds. Then set a timer for 3 minutes and just wait. This is giving your sugar a time to dissolve, which is going to allow it to caramelize easier in the oven. Once those 3 minutes are up, whip it again for 30 seconds. Then wait 3 more minutes. Once that 3 minutes is up, you're gonna whip it a final time, and then your wet ingredients are ready. Step 3, mix your wet and dry ingredients. I add wet to dry here, and then I fold it so I don't build a lot of gluten. But you can if you want, just put the paddle in your mixer and add your dry ingredients here. Just stir it until there's no more dry flour. Now I'm gonna fold it until all the dry flour is incorporated. Then I'm gonna add my chips and my pecans. Now if you don't wait for your butter to cool completely before whipping it, you might have some melted chips here, so make sure the dough is cool enough so you don't melt them. Well, I had tried to film this like a week ago, and when I filmed it, there was a setting that was wrong, and a lot of it is in slow motion. So I didn't want to waste that footage, so here is a slow motion montage. Step 4, add the dough to the pan. Now this dough is pretty thick, so I add it in little clumps all over the pan and then try to spread it up. I use both a rubber spatula for the rough spread and then an offset spatula for the finishing spread. Step 5, bake it. So you put this on the middle rack for 12 minutes. Then, when your timer goes off, turn it around and cook it for another 10 to 13 minutes. Now the ideal cookie here is brown on the outside and a little underdone on the inside. When you take these out, you're gonna let them rest in the pan so they will continue to cook just a little. I wait about an hour to make sure they're completely cool before I cut into them. Now these are amazing on their own, but they are absolutely next level with a glass of milk.
So that is how you make brown butter chocolate chip cookie bars. The hardest part of this recipe is waiting for them to cool. I will guarantee that once you start making this, this will be your most requested recipe. Thanks for watching.